Good morning. Welcome to the 6 a.m. club. I hope you're starting your weekend well. Let's start inspired. I love to start my day inspired, and that applies to the weekends too. So here in the 6 a.m. club, we always picked a random quote of the day, and we talk about what that quote speaks to us, and we always close with a call to action or an invitation. So let's jump into our quote for today. And that quote says, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." Let me repeat it one more time. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. I love this quote, and I think things happen for a reason. I always feel that when I pick a random quote, there is something that quote is telling me that day. This week has been a stressful week for me just because of my crazy schedule. My husband has been out of town, so I've been solo parenting while having a really packed agenda at work. I was out of town last week for work. So that meant that a lot of my meetings got pushed to this week, and it's been like back-to-back meetings all week. And I know better. I know that is not good for me, not good for my stress, because one thing that creates stress for me is that anticipation that I'm going to be late. Like, I am a very punctual person. I like to be very punctual. And the feeling that I'm running late or that I'm going to be late for the next meeting, that puts a lot of stress on me personally. And we all have different things that trigger us, but that is one trigger for me. And I know better not to schedule back-to-back meetings because that means it's going to be a stressful day. So that's why I think this quote really is for me today and speaks for me today. And it doesn't talk about punctuality or the stress that comes about that. But I think the key here is we get to choose our thoughts. And in my case, for example, if what creates stress in me is not actually being late, but is the thought of the anticipation that I might be late. It's the thought that I choose to focus on, anticipating something that could potentially happen. See, a lot of times is not the actual thing that creates stress, but is our anticipation of what could potentially happen that is stressing us. Think about it for a second. Is the anticipation that something is going to go wrong? Is the anticipation that you're not going to be able to finish on time? Is the thought about the amount of work that we have? How many times have you feel overwhelmed by the amount of work that you need to do to finish maybe a project that you have? And when you actually sit down and break it down, it's not as bad as you thought it was. But is that thought of that anticipation of what it would mean, the fact that it can have a negative output that creates high levels of stress. So sometimes it's not about doing something different, but is about shifting our thoughts that can really help reduce our levels of stress. For me, if instead of focusing on, oh my God, I'm going to be late, I focus on what I want to get out of today. What are my intentions? Or just being present where I am at that moment without anticipating that I'm going to be late or the stress that brings to me, that can make a whole difference on my levels of stress on a particular day. The same thing if you're focusing your thoughts on the things that can go wrong, or the fact that you might be late, or the fact that someone might not deliver something on time for you to be able to do your part on time, or whatever the thought is. if instead of focusing on those things that are stressing you, you focus on thoughts that are more calming and smoothing, like gratitude, for example, one of my favorite ones. Thinking about what you're grateful for this moment, that is something that for me smooths things out, like calms me down, brings that back, or thinking about the weekend, or thinking about an upcoming vacation, or thinking about the things that you've accomplished this week, or thinking about all the things that you've already done. Instead of thinking about what is left to be done, that might be a source of stress, think about what you have already done and accomplished. So, here's my invitation for you today. How can you shift your thoughts in a way that helps reduce your stress? We're all stressed lately. I feel like everyone that I talk to is stressed, is busy, it's overwhelmed. It seems like there's something in the water, right? We're all stressed. But what if we shift our thoughts? What if we're more intentional about what we're thinking and focusing on, and we focus on things that calm us down? Okay, that is my invitation for you today. And along with that, I'm going to ask you one last question. And that is, do you enjoy the 6 a.m. episodes on Saturdays? Because if you do, you can subscribe to get these every single day, Monday through Friday, through a private podcast episode that goes out every day at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. So you can start your day inspired. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will see you back here on Monday for another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. And I said this before, I don't know if you were paying attention, but I have a little surprise coming up soon. So stay tuned.